Yeah, from what I'm seeing here, this has been leaking gas pretty bad. This insulator block is like gasoline soaked. Came out very wet. It's wet inside the manifold too. So I think that's very wet in there. There's a few issues going on here. Definitely the needle and seats got something going on. And I want to check a few other things while I'm in here and see what's going on with this. But this is all pretty wet with fuel. So I'm going to get it off now, get it on the bench, and we'll get into it and see what's going on. Clean it up real good. Even though the bike's been running good, I think it's had fuel like blowing by. So you've probably been using a lot more fuel than it needed to be. Everything's kind of wet, and then of course you got some oil leaking from the rocker boxes, so you got that going on too. But let me get this carb off and get it on the bench. Now, this is pretty bad. A lot of varnish in there. The whole barrel, the inside of the carburetor, the throttle plate. You know, external dirty. That's just a lot of oil and grease, but this needs a good overhaul. See all this? This stain is usually from gas leaking, so I think this gasket in here might be bad too. So there's quite a few issues here. I'm going to take it apart now and see what we find inside. When I put this back together, I'm going to install a part called the turbulator. The turbulator sends the air and the fuel in spinning and breaks the air-fuel mixture up much better, so you get a nicer burn. I haven't looked at the plugs yet, and those can always indicate, the plugs indicate how this has been running, whether it's been running rich or too lean or whatever. And when I put that turbulator in, your plugs will be perfect. The engine, because if it's not right, you start getting a lot of heavy carbon building up inside the heads and on the valves. The turbulator will prevent that carbon from building up, and any that's in there over time will start to break off and blow out the exhaust pipe. So let me get this apart. I'm not seeing dirt in here, which is a good thing. So that's telling me that the needle and seat are probably worn. I have new needles and seats. I'm automatically just going to install a new one, because if I take it for granted I'm just going to clean this up and put it all back together, and the needle and seat is worn and it starts leaking again, then I got to take it all apart again. So this is the time to do it. Do it now, you'll never have to do it again for 20 years, but they do eventually start to wear out. This may have a steel needle or maybe a rubber one, I don't know which. The rubber ones, naturally the ethanol's killing those. If it's a steel one, it's just worn out, and the same with the seat. So we'll take care of that. Next I want to go into this accelerator pump, see what's going on inside here, and then we'll start getting into the main body of the carburetor. Everything in here looks pretty good. This gasket though, the float bowl wasn't on too tight. This gasket might have been letting fuel weep by. See, even the gasket's kind of saturated with fuel, so I should be able to reuse this. I'm just going to tighten it up better. See, the rest of the carburetor inside is fairly clean. So, you know, I'll pull the jets and everything. I'm just going to go right to it and clean it up real good. And that's it. Forget about it. You won't have to deal with it anymore. You know, all the fuel leaking and all that stuff will be taken care of. You won't have to shut off the fuel. You know, you won't have to worry about that anymore. Alright, I'm going to get ready to put it in the tank and soak it. I put these covers back on. I'm not a very big fan of these. These retain a lot of heat. Plus they're loose and they rattle. What you're better off doing, a lot of my customers, I take these off. I don't put them back on. For the head bolts, because the head bolts get rusted, they get the caps that go on the head bolts. And that'll dress it up. Then you just have your plug wire. The caps for the head bolts, Harley has those. I can get them aftermarket. They're really nice. I usually put a little silicone on them. I put them in, there's a little set screw, you tighten them up and that's it. You can get them in chrome, they get them all different kinds. That way the heat still dissipates. The head bolts in these always rust. So it's just to dress it up a little bit. Still gives it a nice look. I really don't like these. These retain They keep a lot of heat in there. It'll shorten the life of the spark plug. And once again, this is an air-cooled motor. The less things you have on there to trap heat, the better. I've even gone as far as a lot of my customers, and I relocate the horn. Sometimes I put the horn down here in this area, because once again, without the horn there, the air can go in, go between the cylinders, and circulate around them, keeping them cool. Because what will happen on these, either your valve seals or your valve guides eventually will burn up. And I relocate the horn, I get rid of all this friggin' mount bracket and all that. You still got to keep your VOS switch. It makes it run that much cooler. Yeah, there's a there's a bracket to transfer this down to here. Actually, the early FX, the Super Glides, that's where the original horn was. The horn was mounted down here. Then sometimes if people want to go to an aftermarket horn, they don't sound like the Harley horn. They put them in here between the wishbone. They put them down here right up front. You'll still get a sticker. A lot of people don't really use their horn, but I try to get them out of here. It gets more air in there. It's better for the cylinders. Also, it gets more air to your coil without this blocking it. The coils have a tendency to overheat. When coils overheat, the bike will run horrible, or sometimes it just shut down. And if it does it a couple of times, then the coil shorts out and you got to replace the coil. Coil covers are alright. See, like this coil cover is solid in the back. When I put these on bikes, I drill a couple of holes in the back so the air can come in and blow right through it. The solid covers also retain heat. Coils, the older ones, doesn't have heatsink fins on them. All the new bikes, they don't even put covers on, some of the new ones, but they have heatsink fins on them because the coils run very hot. These are all things to try to get the engine to run cooler. So those are things of interest. You don't have to do it, but like I say, if your bike starts smoking at some point, it's good because the guides or the valve seals, they just get too hot, and they go, and then the bike will start smoking. So I like to try to get rid of anything that's restricting airflow around these motors. So I did put them back, but that's something you might want to keep in mind. I'd get rid of these and just put the chrome caps on. Alright, this is the part I was talking about, the turbulator. And like I said, that is designed so that the fuel and air goes in spinning. And it really breaks it up and atomizes it better. So that goes right here into the manifold. And then now we bolt the carburetor back up to that. And I put this in, anytime I have to go in and do carburetor work, I automatically put these turbulators in. Any carbon that's starting to build up in this engine, this will stop it, and now any carbon that's in there over time will dissipate. And this will prevent it from getting heavy carbon. Yeah, you don't want a lot of carbon. I've even had some people that you shut the bike off and the engine keeps running because the carbon is in there is glowing red hot. It reignites the gasoline. Because when I've had to pull heads off some bikes, the carbon is so bad on the valves that really cuts down your performance, and also, once again, that's going to make the engine run hot. So this little thing, it's like $14. It makes all the difference in the world. I swear by them. Alright, here's the carb all back together, nice and clean, like brand new, inside and out. No more gas leaking, that's for sure. Get all the carbon out of here that was all varnished up. And it will stay this way now too. You know, this shouldn't get all carboned up again. This gasket that's on here, that's for the turbulator, the other side of it. I pre-glue them on so they stay in place and they line up better. The other thing I think was happening, because this flow pole was filling up right to the top, gas was getting past here. Then there's a vent here. As this continued to keep filling, gas was coming out of this vent. That's why there was all that staining down here. Also kind of dangerous, because when you're riding on a hot day, that gas could ignite and you can have a good fire going. So we've eliminated all that. This is the old seat and the old needle. I don't know, the old needle's around here somewhere, so I threw it out. So you got a brand new needle and seat in here now too. That's right in here, so you'll have no more trouble with gasoline leaking. Alright, so we decided to do the rocker boxes. So I'm pulling the tanks out. These are split tanks. While I was in here, both of these bulbs were burnt out. And this mount right here, the clip on the bottom was missing. This is rubber mounted, but it still helps to make a ground, so that's why the lights were flickering. So those are all set. The speed all lights up good now. I don't know if you can see it in this light. And you can see the light on down here, and you can see it lit up there. So, and it ain't flickering, so it's going to be fine. I got to pull the other side off, and I got to take this whole motor mount set up out of here, get that out of my way, then I can start disassembling the rockers. These shouldn't be too bad. I can get at all the bolts. Harley was good enough in the days when they made these. See, they pre-drilled the frame, because you got to go through here with a long wrench to get at that bolt right there. A lot of bikes come in, that's not there. I have to drill a hole. It's the only way you can get at that, to get it out, and then you got to get it back in, and it's got to be tight or it'll leak. So I'll start stripping more stuff off, and let me get the other tank off, and then I'll start undoing this motor mount. So that's where we're at on the boxes. You'll see once I get these apart, they're probably paper gaskets, and you'll see how they're all crispy and they crack and they just dry out. Very common. These may have even been done once already, but everybody would use paper gaskets. That was the best at the time. Now I'll use the steel ones. It'll outlast the bike. You'll never have to change those again. And then I'll determine whether this has adjustable push rods or not. I should be able to do this without pulling the push rods and the push rod tubes out, which is good. Saves time, saves money. So we'll see when we get there. So what you have here is the old style paper gaskets. See, they get very brittle. They just break it right off down here. This is where it was leaking. You can see all the oil puddled up. These gaskets are also very thin. Oil can get by these. The other gasket for this side, that's stuck on the bottom of the rockers. But I gotta get all this off of here. This one's coming off pretty good. Sometimes I have to really scrape them. And you can't leave anything on there. No pieces, nothing. Because then the new one won't set right. See, you get all the oil puddled up down in here. The oil is all going all over. So I'm going to clean it up best I can. And when I first start this, there'll probably be a lot of smoke, because all this oil will start to burn off now. So that's where it's at. These look like, these are adjustable push rods, so there's a good chance that there's a cam in here, because from the factory, these would have been stock push rods. The fact that I can't pull them out tells me they're adjustable. Here we go. Let's see, I got this one out. Yeah, see, that's an adjustable push rod. So chances are someone did put a cam in this. Alright, so I'm going to clean this all up, and I'm going to clean up all the parts, the whole rocker box assembly, and I'll assemble this one. I always do one complete, then I'll move to the rear one. So that's where it's at now. Now these are the new rocker box gaskets. You can see how they're embossed. So it acts like a rain gutter, so the oil can't get by. And the nice part about these, it's all one piece. Whereas the older ones are two separate pieces, and your alignment could get messed up when you're trying to put them on there. So I got this all cleaned up. Cleaned it up good. Tried to get some of the oil out of there. I'll still try to get a little bit more of it out. Most of it will burn off over time, because this would never burn off because you had new oil still going on it. So now once this is stopped, it'll burn off that old oil. So I'm going to start reassembling. Let me put this gasket in. See how nice that just sits right in there. And then I'll start reassembling. All the bolt holes line up nice, and it's all one piece. You can't go wrong. And being steel, this is final. You never have to do these again for the life of the bike. Alright, so that's where it's at now. I'll start to reassemble. Alright, so these four main bolts on top here, these have to be torqued 18 pounds. That's the whole rocker system right there. We used a torque wrench here with the Can you see the strongman arm on there? Yeah, that's what we use to torque them up. So I'm going to torque these at 18. You just bring them up till they click. So we'll start here and you do it in a cross pattern so they're torqued evenly. Alright, that one's torqued. That clicked off, that one's torqued. Get this one. That clicked off, that's torqued. And one more. That's torqued off. Those aren't going anywhere. Now I got to put the other bolts in and then start assembling the rest of the rocker. This next part is where it's tricky because this skinny little rubber gasket, you know, they fit pretty good, but they could always fall in, and you have really no way of knowing. You can't tell. So you kind of keep your fingers crossed that the gasket stayed in place. And the very top one, there's another gasket that'll be in here, and you can't see that one at all when you're putting it together. Not a very good design by Harley, and they did this right up to the end, till they made the last Evolution motor. Twin cam motors, they changed all of it now, and it's a much better system. And as for as many as these as I do, every now and again when I get one that'll still leak, and I have to go back in and readjust the gasket. So that's where I'm at now. So what we basically had was the same thing here, same thing, paper gasket. It dried out and cracked. You know, so I'm going to clean this all up, clean this old oil up, get it out of here. Scrape these down a little bit. Here's the front one all assembled. It's all back together, ready to go. And like I said, I never know till I start it up, and it won't leak oil. What happens if one of these two gaskets aren't right? It's the block pressure leaks out of here, and you'll hear it pissing by. All right, I got to get that phone. I'll see you when I get this starting to go together. All right, both rocker boxes are all back on, corrected. Like I said, if the gaskets didn't seat right, it'll be one of these two gaskets, front or rear. It's usually the rear one that always gives me trouble. And it won't leak oil, but you'll hear it leaking block pressure. But this one don't have the head breathers, so usually the head breather type, you'll hear it pissing out. This one's not a head breather, so this one, all you're really going to see is if they're not seated right, it will leak oil, and hopefully it will happen here. I'm going to run it, I'm going to rev it up, and if it's going to happen, I hope it happens here. Sometimes it don't do it for me, you know, and the customer comes back and says it's leaking. It's usually down in the far corner on this side, but I'll check and double check. It's usually, if it's gonna, it's down here, but it's just the rubber gaskets, so it's simple enough to correct it by just loosening the 4 bolts and seeing if the gasket moved. They fall inward, and if it did, I can bring it back out and tighten everything down. It will not be the steel ones I put in. Those are final, so I don't have to worry about that. But hopefully there'll be no leaks. The reason I came in was to stop the leaks. But because of this design, it's a poor design, you can't see anything. Once you get this piece onto this piece and you got to put this on and bolt it down, if the gasket moved, you have no way of knowing because you can't see it. It looks fine until you get this piece on. Then you got to move things around a little bit to line up bolts, and that's when it can move. But hopefully that won't happen. So now I'm waiting for bars and cables and everything. So what I'm going to start to do next, I'm going to start to take all of this apart. I'm going to take the controls off, take the handlebars off, take the headlight off, take this shroud off, and I'm going to start extending the wiring so when the new bars come, you know, it'll go that much smoother for me. Everything will be ready. I already know how much I got to extend them. I always make them extra long anyways. When I get them on, I fit them and cut them, and then I shrink wrap them, solder them, shrink wrap them, and that's done. These particular bars that are coming, I don't think are for internal wiring. For this year bike, they didn't offer a whole lot of bars in 12-inch, so they may still be external wiring, but I do it nice and neat, so it's still going to look okay. I'm not sure, they might be internal. I won't know till I get them in. It doesn't really specify in the catalog, which makes me think they're not. They're going to be external, but you have just one cable running down on both sides. It's nice and clean. So if they run externally, and I have these clips, and it should come with those holes in the bars, so you put the clips in and you just clip the wires in place. The nice part is you'll have the height. They're also a wide ape hanger, so you'll be very happy with them. And see, Harley's bars, these are Harley bars. Harley bars are stainless steel. A lot of people don't know that. These aren't chrome. Harley always does them in stainless. The new ones will be chrome, so they'll be chrome like this, because you can see the difference. This is chrome, this is stainless. So the new ones, all the aftermarket ones, are usually chrome. So they look brighter. It makes a nice finish. We can use the same risers. It's just that I got to get in to the wiring down here, so the shroud's got to come off. And in order to get this off, I have to drop the headlight. No big deal. Alright, so that's where I'm going to next. Alright, so I got this all stripped down, got all the controls off. I'm waiting for the bars to come in and all the cables, and I'll start reassembling it. I got the brake line off. Now the clutch cable right here, that goes into the transmission right here. So I had to pull this muffler off so I can get at all these bolts. I think I can get at these top ones without taking this pipe off. I really don't want to. I'll probably have to do this by hand with an Allen wrench, because they're all Allen bolts. I'll get around that without taking it apart. I'm draining the transmission out now. I'm going to let that drain overnight. When you pull this cover off, more oil will come out. So you got to get in here, and there's a whole system in there to hook the clutch cable back up inside of here, because that's the release for when you pull the clutch in. It moves the push rod through to the clutch on the other side. So tomorrow, I'm done for tonight. Tomorrow I'm going to take this all apart, get the cable out. And everything is on hold till parts start coming in. They should start coming back. I might start seeing everything in by Wednesday, I hope. I'm not going to put the carburetor back on because I got to run the throttle cables to that. You have to connect them on the carb first and get them back up on the bars and adjust the cables. Carburetor is all ready to go though, all nice and clean, like new. And we're going to put the turbulator in there. So I'll bolt that up when I get the cables. It's easier bolting the carburetor up when the tank is off. So the rocket boxes are done. So having the tank off gives me a lot more room, you know, because I got to run the throttle cables have to run in here, and they have to be secured down to the carburetor. So the tank was going to have to come off anyways to do the throttle cables, but I only have to take one side off to just split tanks. But to do the rocker boxes correctly, everything has to come off. So brake pad should be in. I'm waiting on that for the rear brake. And tomorrow I'll start taking this light bar assembly apart. Like I said, I can take the ends off. I can keep these, they're still good. It's just the bar that got bent, so I gotta get up in here, unbolt this. Hopefully the wiring, it appears I get them on maybe quick disconnects here. That'll make it a lot easier for me, but I'll know when I get in there. So that's what tomorrow's mission is. So it's 8 o'clock, it's Monday, and this is as far as I'm going tonight. I usually don't work this late, but I had to do a lot of running around today to order parts, and some parts, the bars I originally ordered were back ordered, and we're going to come into the second week of March. I'm like, I can't wait for that, so I had to get into another catalog, find the same type of bars, order those, make sure they were available. They're coming out of New York. So all my parts should hit here on Wednesday, so I can start putting everything back together. So until tomorrow, that's where I'm at now. Now see, this is where it gets a little labor intense. In order to take this cover off the transmission to change out to the new clutch cable, you have to take all this apart to get the old cable out. Also, you have to take part of the exhaust system apart. This one here, I had to loosen it up there so I could lift this pipe up just enough so this cover would come out straight, because one bolt kept hitting the pipe. So it's to do a simple thing like a clutch cable, there's quite a bit of work to it. So this is where I'm at now. I'm gonna get this cable out of here, and I'll just leave everything the way it is till the new one comes in, and then I'll just put everything back together. So I had to go one further. I had to take the whole exhaust system off because the cable bolts right down here, the clutch cable, and it was in a P-clamp here, and I couldn't get it to bolt to get the clamp out because the exhaust pipe was right here. So this is where it gets, you know, labor intense. So you're going to drop the whole exhaust system just to get it one lousy bolt for a clamp, but it will make it a lot easier for me putting this back together because I'll have absolutely nothing in my way. So, you know, sometimes you try to take shortcuts, but it ends up being more work. So just bite the bullet, drop the exhaust, get everything done so nothing's in your way. It's easier for me to work this way, and we just put it all back together. So that's what you got to do sometimes. Softails more so, it's more labor intense, always on the Softails, even the new ones. It's just the design of the bike. It's the way the exhaust comes by. Some of the newer ones, the exhaust comes right by the middle of this, so there's absolutely no way you can do anything there without taking it out. The absolute worst job on the Heritage Softail is replacing the starter. So hopefully your starter is going to last a long time, because it's a job I try to avoid, but I mean, I've done them, but I think every time I do one, it ruins my brain a little more each time. It's going to be the worst job. Alright, so now I'll start making up the harnesses for the wiring for the bars. So that's where we go next. Alright, so I made up the harnesses for both sides for the extensions. Those have been soldered and shrink wrapped, and then I got to cut them again to size and solder shrink wrap the other ends. This will go over the whole thing. It'll match what's on there. You'll never see the difference that it was spliced. You'll never know. And then I just did the other side, so that's all ready to go. All the wiring extensions are on that. Cables, bars, everything should be coming tomorrow. So now I'm going to get onto that light bar in the back here and get this apart. And like I said, I can salvage these. They separate here, so I can salvage the directionals. We're just going to change out the bar, but there is wiring involved in here too. So that's what I'm going to do now. Alright, we got the bars on. I got to swap things now. I got to take the lifts off of the fork tubes and put them back on the bars, so I can put all this stuff back in here where it belongs. Everything's just temporary right now with the zip ties and everything. I'll clean that all up. I'm waiting on clutch cables and brake lines. Those should be tomorrow, I hope. I thought they came in today, but they didn't. So none of this is really tightened and in place just yet. I won't do it till I get the cables and everything finalized. So I'm gonna start putting all this back together, and then I gotta, you know, put the tank and everything back on. I still gotta put oil in it. I want to run it up. I still gotta put the carb back on. I can't put the carb on until I get the throttle cable, so hopefully tomorrow. And I got the light bar. I was able to switch directionals over to it, and it is shorter than the one that was on there, so there's less chance of you know, bashing this one up. So later tonight I'm going to bolt this one up. Didn't have to really do any wiring. It's nice these were on plugs. The fact that they were on plugs was great. That makes a world of difference. So I didn't have to really go into any wiring here, so not a whole lot of labor here. The exhaust system, like I said, in order to get the transmission properly, I had to drop the whole exhaust, because I also had the cable tied down here with a P-clamp, and I want to put it back the right way. So I had to pull the exhaust off, no big deal. So if all the cables come in tomorrow, which I'm positive they will be here tomorrow, I can finish this. I can put a lot of it together tonight. I'm going to work out here late because I got other work coming in. I'm trying to stay on schedule, and the weather's been messing me up. I can put the tanks and the dash and everything back on. Well, no, I can't do that either, because the cables have to run through here. So I'll put the light bar on. I'm going to put oil in it, and then I can't fill the tranny yet either. So I think the most I'm going to be able to do is get this all buttoned up. All the wiring came out nice. I don't know if I had mentioned it before, the bars we originally ordered were back ordered to the middle of April, and I know you didn't want to wait that long, and I can't have the bike here that long either. So instead of 1.25" bars, these are just 1-inch bars. They are dimpled, and dimpled shows that the wiring under here went into the dimple so these clamps can go on properly. And I'm going to change these over to some nice chrome zip ties, so everything will look like it did before, except you're running ape hangers. They don't offer a whole lot in 12-inch ape hangers, because I tried, I looked up another pair 1-inch with internal wiring. I called those in. Those are back ordered. They won't be in until, they wouldn't hit the warehouse until the middle of April, and it might be 3 more days after that. Seems like these have gotten very popular. That's why they don't have them in stock. So I had to go to a whole different distributor, and also they vary for the year of the bikes. A lot of the ones that they're showing are from like 2000 on. For the older bikes, I think it's because of that dimple under there. It was very limited to what I could get. So these are still 12-inch apes. They're chrome. The wires just run external. That's how your wires were before. I did it very neat and clean. It's going to look nice when I'm all done. So you'll be all set. It's going to be a different ride for you. These I've got kind of straight up. But, you know, when you come here, you can sit on the bike. All you got to do is loosen these bolts, and we can adjust it to where you want it. And then you just adjust your mirrors. You always do that last. So that's where it's at now. Rocker boxes are done. Did quite a bit of work to it while I was here, so you know, you'll be good to go for the season, and hopefully the weather's going to stay nice now. So as I get further along, I'll get back into the video. But here's an idea of what it looks like overall with the apes. I mean, it's a whole different look. I mean, these bars look kind of puny down here now compared to what you're running up there now. And the width is the same. So these are still wide. These were wide, and these are still wide bars too. They're actually be quite comfortable that way. Some, they make them so that some of the apes that they put on, these are straight out. They're straight out this way. I mean, so you're right out straight. Your hands right out straight like that. Those are all looks. They're not that comfortable. So this was a better choice. You're still nice and wide, good wide berth on it. I think you're gonna like them. So, back to work. See the light bars on, you can see that's shorter than the other one, so if you run it without bags, it looks better. And if you do put bags on, the directional is like right in the middle of the bag, so it makes people notice the directional more. And less chance of catching that on something to bend it. I mean, your crash bars up front come way out. So, chances are, you know, if you're backing into something though, you can't help it, but you must have hit something pretty good to bend that. That steel is pretty solid. But I was able to swap everything over, so you're back in action there. I get everything up front done. I just tested all the systems. Everything's working fine. I got to clean this up a little bit. And then I'm going to do the final connections with the zip ties on here. It's just difficult because these straps are holding the wire, and so I'm going to have to relocate those again to hold the bike up. So that's where I'm at now. I'm going to tie those down and finish those up. And a few more little things I can do, and hopefully the cables come in tomorrow. Cables come in, I'm done. You know, I just got to bleed up the front brake. Also waiting for rear brake pads. Things are coming through slow. I don't know why. Well, it's because it's an older bike. They don't keep this stuff like in the New York warehouse. It's older parts, so these can come from Kansas, California, and that's what's taking so long. Stuff that's newer is in New York, and I get it the next day. So there's still a few little things I can do out here. And then tomorrow I'll wrap it up. I gotta run it, make sure the rocker boxes are fine, make sure nothing's leaking, you know, bleed the brakes up, make sure everything's good. Everything's good. So until I get a little further, that's where I'm at now. Well, there is pretty much all back together. Windshield on, all the cables on. The only problem I ran into is, I don't know if I ordered it wrong or if they shipped it wrong, but there's supposed to be an idle cable and a throttle cable. They sent me 2 idlers, so I gotta find another 6-over throttle. I may have to order it. That's the only thing holding me up at this point. I ran the bike. It runs real nice. I'm just going to check the oil again, top that off. I'm going to put the air cleaner back on. Then I can put the tanks on. I can't still put the tanks on until I get this other cable, because it has to run inside of the tank. Other than that, everything else is good. Turned out good. Right now where the bars are at, I had to pull them back a little bit for the windshield. So that's as close to the windshield as you can get. So you can't go really much more forward, unless you want to run without the windshield, and you can put them more forward. I think that'll be pretty comfortable right there. So that's where I'm at. Once I get that cable, I can button it up, and it's done. Well, I get the cable on, get the tanks on. I'm going to put the seat on. I'm going to fire it up. Make sure everything's running properly. That's a lot of work. We get it all back together. Looking like it did when it came in, except different bars. Alright, let me get the seat on. I'm going to fire it up and I'll video it while it's running.